know they've successfully completed their armies. That's cool. If you have finished painting your forces, either the Tyranids or the Space Marine, do share it on social media. Hashtag painting Warhammer or hashtag new 40k. It's always really nice to kind of just click on those hashtags and have a look through what everyone has been up to. Yeah, very cool. What's your next Warhammer 40,000 project, do you think, Alex?
Once I finish them, I have some orcs, actually. It's nice. The first time I've painted any orcs in about 20 years.
Missing out.
I know. It's your love for them, actually, that inspired me.
That's nice.
So I grabbed the orc kill team.
Solid.
Maybe about 50% done. There was an awful lot of stuff on my list.
Have you painted the Squig yet?
No.
So the Squig and the Grots are not only just the best models ever, but also like game winning, genuinely awesome. So that Grot has almost without fail every single game nets me about 3 or 4 points. Which is about half the points I score. But you know, that never mind, that's not important. The important thing is that he contributes.
He's key.
Yeah, he's clutch, absolutely.
What about yourself?
So I've got I've been painting some Gene Stealer cults recently. So I've been expanding the army a little bit because they're really fun to play with in the new edition. So I've already got quite a big army of those. I'm adding some things in. So I've got a Ridge Runner and some new characters. And then after that, I've got a big Wild Rider army for Eldar. So I'm going to have everything on jet bikes, all in kind of glorious Samhan red, flying around. Because again, basically all of my projects that I do are things that I wanted to do when I was a kid and weren't able to do. So I remember, I think it was the 3rd edition Warhammer 40,000 rulebook had like a really glorious spread of the Wild Riders, filling a whole page across an ice battlefield, and it just looked awesome. And we also had the Craft World expansion for
Noxy
that had the Flameheart character on his little weird jet bikey conversion thing. So I'm going to see if I can fit him in as well.
That's very cool.
So, yeah, it's probably not the best way to run an Eldar army, but I think I'll do alright. Yeah, and I spend the time on there. I'm going to make them look real pretty.
Hey Matt, how you doing?
I've got a nice big orc army that I'm happy to play with, and I've got a Gene Stealer army, and they're having a good time at the moment. So I don't need to rush the army. Take my time.
Or is it good? No, it looks like it's good.
Cool. All right. How are we doing for time? Oh, we are closing in. I think we've got about 1 minute left before we can get to our first reveal video. If you are watching in the chat, guys, do let us know what Warhammer 40,000 projects.
Have you guys got audio?
Anything catches your eye, Alex? You want to shout out any particularly cool projects that we'll do? Show that. Lots of people. Lots of people like in.
Somebody asking which cult have you gone for?
So I started painting my Gene Stealers when Deathwatch Overkill came out. So at that point, none of the cults had been established. So I sort of made my own up.
I'm looking forward to seeing new Terminators. Oh, that's all right. As long as you guys got audio, I don't have any, so I'll just do some other stuff.
Subsidiary of High Fleet Mantis, which is my team. Very cool. So yeah, I made them up because there wasn't any IP when I started. But there's loads of cool stuff now. And if I was doing it again, I'd probably do Bladed Cog because I really like the idea of having kind of uprising on a Mechanicus battlefield and mixing lots of bionic-y stuff in. But that didn't exist when I started, so I didn't think of it. So if I was doing it from scratch, that's what I do, but I didn't, so I haven't.
There's a lot of people that seem to have started Tyranids.
Because I think they're awesome, right?
Because I think they're awesome.
Yeah, but as I say, I am an impartial observer. Space Marines equally cool. They're both great. Right, okay, we can, I think... thank you ever so much for tuning in, guys. We can now cut to our first video, which will announce the winner.
Just with the way I've set this up, arbitrary. I don't have all the right apps set up, so I'm just using the web browser. But I don't have any audio.
Its ravenous swarms descended upon the high world of Ogrim. The planet's skies darkened with spore storms and billion-strong swarms of winged bio-horrors, and it seemed Ogrim was surely doomed. Yet, the Imperial defenders stood firm. For every tide of Tyranids that overran artillery emplacements or boiled through breaches in Imperial fortifications, another was crushed beneath the treads and guns of massed tank formations, strafed to ruin by relentless wings of gunships, or cut to pieces.
I've got audio now, guys, so we're all good. We're all good.
The hunger of the great devourer is not so easily denied. Like a wounded beast, the Tyranid swarms reacted as one and lashed out with ferocious force. In the planet's last hours, what vital relics and personnel could be salvaged were extracted from Ogrim at great cost in rearguard troops and escorting void ships. They left behind a world that seethed with Tyranids in their billions. Ogrim was doomed. With its fall, the entire Formidire system, including the vital anchor world of Sanctum, was placed in greater peril than ever before. Reinforcements are coming, and there is a whole galaxy to fight for.
So there we go. The results of the Battle for Ogrim are in. It is a Tyranid victory. So congratulations for all of you who were rooting for the Tyranids and who contributed and played your game.
Sounds like a lie.
And your results. Thanks so much for all of you who joined in. Really cool to be able to be part of this kind of cool moment. And then you can see there we've got some kind of lore
Yo,
as well.
Static, how you doing?
That planet, which is in your Warhammer 40,000 rulebook, by the way. I can't remember the exact page number, but you can go in there with your purple pen and scribble that out now because it's been consumed. A few bits of details for you guys who are tuning in. A Tyranid victory, of course. We had over 44,000 results registered, which is really cool. Early on in the campaign, it was very, very, very close, like incredibly close. The lead changed several times in the first week, and at several points there was like 1 or 2 votes in it, and it was. We had thousands of entries, and it stayed within about 10 votes of each other for ages and ages, and kept like swapping. The Space Marines edged ahead at the end of the first week, and I think at that point we put an update out into the world and said, "This is the results as it stand." Space Marines ever so slightly ahead.
Hey Pascal, how you doing?
That seemed to galvanise the Tyranid players and fan base, perhaps, and then we started to see the results swing in slightly the other direction. And once that snowball started, it didn't really stop, and the Tyranids came out on top. So final result: 53% to the Tyranids, 47% to the Space Marines. So there you go, guys. There you go.
That's it, awfully close. I remember asking for an update a little while ago, and you said that literally, I think it was 18 games in it, and given the thousands and thousands of games. Has any of our campaigns ever been that close?
I think this is probably the closest one we've had, certainly early on. What quite often happens is that after about one day, it's very apparent which way the wind is blowing, right? So we were like, oh, it makes our lives much easier as well because we get to plan this event really far out and we know all the things that are going to happen. But you really kept us guessing right up until the last results were coming in. So yeah, very, very close, very tense, and really cool. But thanks ever so much for tuning in, guys. What that means...
No, you haven't missed anything yet, Static.
2 things. The first
They just did a cinematic.
Some of the people who entered will actually win some prizes, which is cool. So those people have been reached out to already. So keep an eye out on your inbox for that. We got 5 winners basically who get to win cool stuff for entering, which is cool. But what most people have tuned in for today is to have a look at the new miniatures for the winning faction. So we can now take a look at some of the new Tyranids. We have a few videos to run through, quite a few new things on the way for Tyranids. So without further ado, let's have a look at the first film.
Oh, new Gene Stealers. About time, eh? About time, new Gene Stealers.
So, some brand new Gene Stealers. So, very, very cool. Gene Stealers, obviously, an absolutely iconic part of Warhammer 40,000 lore. Alex, you know all about Gene Stealers. What are these guys about?
Yeah, so these guys, as you said, they've been around for ages. In fact, they were possibly one of the first things that the Imperium encountered for the High Fleets on Imgal, where they assumed that these were sort of...
At least there's a box of 10 of them now and not 8, like there used to be.
They've basically featured in every High Fleet that's come along since, and they're possibly...
I still think the Space Hulk ones look better than these.
I wouldn't necessarily say common, but
it's about time.
Yes.
Their sculpts were pretty yuck.
On transport ships, they'll be buried under a hive where they're just awaiting the day of ascension with the cult, or there'll be, say, a whole colony of them on a Space Hulk. So these guys could be anywhere, and they probably are everywhere.
Yeah, so if you're in the 41st millennium, you're probably never more than about 20 meters from a Gene Stealer. Is that what you're saying?
That's not what I would say for Imperial reasons. But,
fair enough.
Quite possibly.
Yeah. But this is a really exciting kit for a bunch of reasons. One of them is that it's great every time we see like a really classic kit reimagined.
Oh, yes.
These are really cool dynamic miniatures. It's a long time coming for a new multi-part Genestealer kit. Obviously, you can use these in a few ways. You can absolutely put them straight into your Tyranid army as Genestealers.
Oh, yes.
I'm quite sure that a lot of Genestealer cult players like myself will also be eyeing these up for pure strain Genestealers because they fit perfectly well into a Genestealer cult's force. There's a few things worth calling out about the kit itself.
They're strong in Warpforge.
So, I think we've got some close-ups.
I use them a little bit, Noxy.
We talk about some of the options.
Oh,
which
your
for the most
Margle.
part are aesthetic,
Yes.
but still you can lean into and make this unit the one you want it to be.
Indeed. So you can see there in the top left the Imgal head with those little feeder tendrils, so that if there's any brain matter left, they can
Delicious
gobble it up
brain.
and see
Yummy
what's going on.
brains.
I still love the classic blue and lavender from the Space Hulk boxes. It looks so good.
So that's really cool.
Yo, Tiny, how we
You've got,
doing, pal?
You particularly like that aesthetic.
Yes.
So you either want them to look like, first contact Genestealers from the moons of Imgal, or you've kind of lent into that kind of horrors from the deep kind of vibe for your Tyranids, and you've got lots of Lictors and Death Leapers and stuff like that. Then you can lean quite heavily into that aesthetic and go for Tentacle Face.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then we've got down at the bottom here.
You're watching me getting pumped in Warpforge, Tiny.
We can use to infect people.
I think it
That
is.
looks so
that's
good.
the thing that's going to be implanting the eggs into the unfortunate hosts. It's probably best not to think too much about exactly how that works and exactly what it means for the hosts. But yeah, unpleasant things happen to you basically once Genestealers get within a meter or so.
That's it. You've recruited for the cult or the. Yeah. Somebody.
Hey, if everyone could give us a thumbs up too, this
The
might
correct
start
name.
kicking
Yes,
our
where eggs come from. So a few colour schemes
sort
on
of
there as
channel
well.
off too.
Obviously,
Just give us a little
have
thumbs up on the
normal,
on the live.
very recognisable purple and blue palette, which is the one you can see top left there. That is the one they tend towards when they're left kind of out in Space Hulks and things by themselves, which is quite kind of ties in quite nicely to the Leviathan colour scheme. But you can also paint
Don't even start about Mike's comeback, mate.
you've got. So if you've got High Fleet Kraken, as you can see there on the right, they look perfectly cool running around in carapace, bone and red, or whatever other colour palette you've got your High Fleet in.
I love the dynamism of these, as you said, because these are obviously like an update of an old kit that, it had some great running kind of poses to it, but these now.
Thank you, guys, thank you.
Running through like a Space Hulk corridor.
That it's about time they got new Genestealers.
And there's a couple of them that are, say, jumping up.
Do you think they're on 32 mils? They look pretty big.
This really does feel like these guys, and you can see there on the right, that they're coming straight for you.
Yeah, I like the elongated arms they've got as well. So I think if you look at the length of the talons and the length of the arms compared to maybe some of the older...
Basically every game in Warpforge, Tiny,
So they've got that kind of...
Mike's deck is just a pure counter to my chaos.
And then they've got their much more human-looking digits that you can imagine opening doors and things. So they're just like absolutely horrible, terrifying monsters from space. But I'm absolutely going to get a bunch of them and put them on my armies. So it's going to be great. Right, so that's one unit. That was cool. It's nice to see some new Genestealers.
Yeah.
That's tick one off the nostalgia list for Tyranids. I think there's might be a few more things on the way. Let's have a look at the next unit.
Thank you very much, Hannibal. Hormagaunts. I love Hormagaunts. I prefer them over Termagants. I've just always liked the little scythed ones. Hey, that's a new multi-part kit. How cool is that? With all 3 weapon options. Very cool. Very, very cool.
So, some new Gaunt options for your Tyranids. There is a new multi-part Hormagant unit, which is very cool, and you've got an expansion to the Termagant unit that we saw first in the Leviathan set. So if we have a look at the Hormagants first, so this is a kit that has been in plastic for a little while, but certainly has been showing its age a bit.
Yes.
So very cool to see a new, much more detailed, very cool, very dynamic unit of Hormagants.
Only
They
one
are
Ripper Swarm base.
Absolutely recognisably the Hormagaunts that you kind of imagine in your mind, but the level of detail on them, the dynamism, the speed that they're kind of displaying is just much cooler. Kind of a 2 decades more miniature development, I suppose, versus the last time we saw Hormagaunts.
So yeah, these guys, they're the basic battle line for the Tyranids, and they'll get dropped onto planets and ships, you name it, just in their billions. and they make up for the quality with quantity. And they've got all the teeth, all the claws, because even though they're a little bit fragile, they'll take fire and they'll die, but, if you put 10,000 of them on the other side of the battlefield, they're just going to wash over like a wave.
Yeah, and they're quite fast as well, so they tend to be...
The bonus
wave of
to these new detailed kits is they look absolutely fantastic, but trying to batch this stuff, like, imagine trying to paint 90 of these things. How long would that take?
Kind of excel at really is just getting loads of them up into the middle of the enemy army, tying up tanks, stopping stuff moving. If you're playing a game, these are great to kind of block units from going near objectives and that sort of stuff. So a really cool unit on a lot of people's bucket list as well for the Tyranid units they wanted to see. So there you go. Hormigants ticked off. Some more of those on the way. There's a nice closer look at some of those units. So there's miniatures.
They are very dynamic. He loves using the term. What is he saying? Dynamized something?
Yeah. So a few of the Tyranid
just
units
call them dynamic poses.
So by the time you've kind of collected
Dynamized.
we'll have enough rippers to kind of put together a unit.
Love the ones leaping off the rocks.
Into having collected the rest of the miniatures.
An entire ripper.
I'm all for that tactical rock.
You could try to do a ripper army.
I'm not
sure.
saying it would be competitive, but
yeah, sure, why not? Go for it. You do you, Alex. That's fine. So there you go. So Hormigants, very cool. We've also got some new...
Yeah, I've got quite a few, don't I?
Termagants, obviously we've seen the first of those new Termagant miniatures in the Leviathan box. But this kit has got a few extra things that the Leviathan set...
Hey, they've got a little rocket launcher.
Yes.
What's new?
So, as we saw in the Leviathan kit, they've all got flesh borers. So that's basically like a little borer beetle that's inside and flings itself out and then chews its way through the target. Whereas you get several different options in this one. You've got the classic kind of spine fists, firing out little bits of chitin at the enemy. You've got the Devourers that you can see there on the vast majority of them.
Yeah. Instead of one beetle, it's just 5.
Chitin.
Yeah,
chitin.
At the end of that gun is basically just like rotting meat. And so when it fires those out, then the little grubs start to burrow in. There's a lot of burrowing involved. If it's not acid, if it's not digestive fluids, it's probably something that's going to burrow into you. But you've also got, you can see there on the left, that chap there with the shard launcher. So it's basically the same kind of parasitic weapon that we've seen with the barb gaunts. You've got in the middle there is the strangle web launcher, and then you've got the spike rifle there next to it.
Spike rifle.
Yeah. So some of these
so there's like 3 or 4 new weapons.
To some of the very
But are they like just a single?
In metal.
You can only have one of those in each squad.
I think it was. So I've got
By
a
looks
very,
of it,
very
yeah.
old Termagant at home with a spike rifle. And effectively what these options do is they throw in some special weapon options effectively into your Termagant.
The one on the far right looks a bit questionable, if you guys know what I'm talking about.
Or an Astra Militarum squad with like a plasma gun in it, or a flamer or something. They give you a little bit of tactical flexibility to kind of throw in some other weird symbiote weapons. They just look kind of cool as well. So you've got a bit more option and flexibility in terms of what you want to do with that Termagant unit. Which, if you've been enjoying Tyranids for 20 plus years, also has like a nice little nostalgia.
I love the way the weapons are moulded. So the way the Tyranids tend to work is that the weapons are actually a separate life form to the main body of the Tyranid. And you can see here just the ways basically.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, guys.
Come in and out of the guns.
Yeah, they're pretty grim.
It's just obviously we've improved the way we can make plastic and that kind of thing. You can get this level of definition into them, and it is just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I think the paint scheme on these, so these are the new weapons, basically, got a nice close-up on them. The paint schemes on these is really nice as well, so you've got, like, you can tell where the one creature starts and one creature stops sort of thing, so that the heavy metal team obviously have done a wonderful job of capturing that. If you wanted to paint these much faster, you'd be well within your rights to just go, actually, you know what, everything that's chitin is one colour and the armour plates are a different colour, so you could paint these up very quickly if you wanted to with contrast paints and things, or if you wanted to kind of take your time over them and really make them beautiful models, I think you absolutely could. I really like the spike.
Give us a close up. Yeah.
That's really cool. But the one top right, sorry, remind me of the name on that one.
That is the strangle web.
The strangle web. I love how the tube is coming out of him into the.
Yeah, it's the dangle web. That's what that one is.
Sort of way. So
that one's the dangle web.
Weapons aren't. It's not like a happy partnership, is it? It's kind of sucking the life force out of the host beast to power.
Yeah, it is.
The weaponry.
Yeah.
And these guys are essentially dispensable.
Oh yeah, it's fine. Yeah. It's just a walking battery for a gun,
So
right? Basically.
the termagants, when they were originally created, were kind of fighting in the Tyranids.
They were like white blood
themselves.
cells, weren't they? They were like they're running through to kind of do the jobs and tasks of the circulatory system. Almost.
And it's really nice to see the difference between the Hormogaunts and the Termagants in the way the bodies are constructed, because obviously they're all gaunts. But these guys, they're a little bit more crouched down and compact for getting through those tiny tunnels, whereas the Hormogaunts are a little bit more spread out with their jumping, their leaping. You can see the speed in them as well.
Yeah. So when the hive ships are kind of in the void, it tends to be the termagants that are the things that are awake, aren't they? They're the kind of patrols that are running around the hive ship and doing the tasks.
Yeah, I think
cleaning out any kind
you've
of
nailed it there, lady. They are very simple, but if you put the effort in, it's going to show a lot.
The Deathwatch should probably give it a good go.
Yeah, they'd give it a go. Yeah,
and then you just swarm them with termagants.
Absolutely right. That's very cool. I think we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but I think it's okay. We can probably jump ahead to our next one. So we've seen some new Gene Stealers. We've seen some new Gaunts.
Yes.
Here's some slightly bigger stuff.
Lictors. Nice. Very cool. 50mm base, surely. Big models. Love it.
So, Lictors obviously have been a big part of the Tyranid force pretty much since they've been with us in Warhammer 40,000. But it's not just one new Lictor we've got for this new edition. Already we've seen the Von Ryan's Leapers, which we saw in the Leviathan box set and the starter sets for Warhammer 40,000. We also have Classic Lictor.
Yes.
So, Alex, what are these guys about?
So
That's damn cool. That is very, very cool.
Vanguard organism. The Lictors would show up on different planets. They've got chameleonic skin, so they can blend in, hide. They can assassinate key targets, cause a bit of mayhem. But they can also, you can see there with the feeder tendrils that say they've killed the commander, pop off the head, eat the brain, get some information, send it back to the Hive Fleet, and then they're the equivalent of, say, assassins and scouts. So you've got the lay of the land, you've got some information, and you've caused some trouble. So these guys, they scout well ahead.
This is some welcomed new kits. How good would it be seeing Gene Stealers and Lictors running everywhere now?
A few Lictors on your planet. They also send like
what is that?
The Hive Fleet. So they tend to kind of somehow infiltrate into the planet ahead of time. If there's lots of juicy biomass, they'll scout it out, not just calling the fleet in, but also kind of getting key intel, literally pulling information out of the minds of enemy commanders and things.
It's often
that one looks chunkier.
When you've got, say, a planet's been
Nids have been in dire need of some new kits.
There's going to be either a Lictor hidden on board, chameleonized in the whole.
Oh, there'll be new Mega Knobs. Lone Wolf for sure.
Honestly, not sure.
For sure, man.
Yeah, so they've some options in the kit as well, which you can see there. So the first Lictor we saw very kind of I suppose poised and ready to pounce with the arms out. This one in the Behemoth color scheme is much more kind of crouched. So this one looks like it's mid stealth sort of thing. So you can
I love how they've redone the Behemoth scheme.
Scouting around the edge of a building.
Really dulled that blue down.
So these are slightly bigger than Tyranid warriors, so they're standing taller than like a Terminator or something. So even one Lictor jumping onto a squad or something is usually enough to kind of take out a small infantry squad or threaten small vehicles and things like that. In game terms, they've got some really fun mechanics to kind of represent some of that stuff. So they get infiltrate, which means they can start kind of wherever they want to on the battlefield, almost not anywhere, but quite a lot of places. They have strike first, which means that even when they get charged, they get to kind of fight you first. They've got lone operative, which means they're quite hard to pick out and target. They've got stealth, which means they're harder to hit. They've got precision on their weapons, so that means that when they
it's pretty old static.
Basically, like pick out the commanders and eat those first, which is really cool. And then to go along with that, they've also got an ability that when you kill enemy characters, you gain command points, which basically represents you eating the brain of the commander and getting vital intel sort of thing. So all that cool lore that Lictors have always had is actually really well represented in the way that they play in the game now, which is really cool. But it's not just Lictors, we've got more cool stuff. This guy. So this is a Neurolictor. So this is a brand new thing. We've never seen this guy before. It is a new variant.
Not sure how I feel about this one.
The genus. Alex, what do we know about Neurolictors?
So Neurolictors, yes, they're essentially a variant of the Lictor, and their deal is basically to sow terror and confusion.
What's this sculpting crew doing? Look at the face on that thing. That's to go with the weapons they just gave the Termagants.
One of the Neurolictors. And one of the things they like to do in lore is...
There are new boys, Lone Wolf. They're just in the combat patrol box.
Spike them, basically. It's referred to by the Imperials as the mark of the Neurolictor. And basically, a bunch of the guys on the battle line turn their weapons on their friends. They're panicked. They forget what they've seen. They might let other Vanguard organisms...
I think this is one of those models I'd need to see in person.
Confusion.
There's a couple models like that. When I first saw Centurions for Space Marines, I thought they were really weird until I saw them in person.
And if they fail the battle shock tests, some pretty dire things can happen.
Yeah, so it combos really nicely with some of the other abilities that you've got with Tyranids, that they do have a lot of kind of...
some of those arms look like they break real easy.
Mechanics, don't
yes.
they? So, like,
Unless you're very careful.
Shock, then X happens, and they've got other ways of making you take battle shock tests and having bonuses to hit or minuses to you if you've taken battle shock. And this is basically another unit that does some of that stuff. It also fights pretty well, so it's still a Lictor, so it's still got your kind of precision attacks and your infiltrating and your fights first and all that sort of thing. So it's another... if you want to lean very heavily into the kind of Lictor archetype and have multiple Vanguard organism-y things in your army, then this is a psychic tool that you can add to the already pretty horrible combat tools that you've got.
That's it.
Oh, I like the tail that comes out of the head on that the top left there. There's like this really long tail.
Cool
That's
model.
cool.
You can see the back of the model there. There's a weird kind of parasitic symbiote psychic thing. The more you look at the new Tyranid models...
Imagine having a themed list for Tyranids that is just based around brain bugs. So you have like Maliceptors and the Neurotyrant and stuff like
You
that.
can absolutely paint them very quickly and just go, there's some bits that are purple and some bits that are bone colour. Or you can really spend your time and kind of paint all these weird little parasites and symbiotes and minor organisms in all sorts of different colours if you wanted to.
There's been a real expansion of kind of the psychic organisms with Leviathan's new.
A lot of brain, a lot of big glowing alien brain in the new Tyranids. Cool. So we've seen this model before. This is a Death Leaper. So the reason we brought him back...
I'm not sure how I feel about this thing's cape.
About how the Tyranid army can work. So obviously we've got Von Ryan's Leapers.
Apart from that, I love the model.
Lictors. We've got the Neurolictor. And if you wanted to as well, you've got the Imgal Gene Stealers, which you can give kind of lictory looking tentacle faces. One of the ways that you will be able to play the Tyranid army when the Codex releases is you can effectively make them a Vanguard force. And what that does is it gives you a bunch of bonuses to your Vanguard style organisms like Lictors and Death Leapers and Neurolictors, and you've got enough models now that actually you can kind of just have those if you want. If you just want a kind of Mantis strikey weird army, you can absolutely do that. If you do that and you choose to take that kind of army, you can take Death Leaper as your general.
Yes.
Which is pretty cool. So this guy basically is your Vanguard commander, I guess, and he wraps up all the rest of those Lictor style species under his banner.
Cape's the only thing I don't like about that model, but surely there's a way to not have that on there.
Because the Galaxy is pretty awful.
So this guy,
Having said that, I think it would throw the weight of the model off if you remove the cape. Like imagine that without the cape, and it's just got this. It's like really top-heavy model.
Been assassinated, and you know it was a Lictor. It may very well have been this guy. He's going to leave corpses everywhere. He's going to devour heads. But as you say, there's a really nice balance between, say, having this chap leading your Vanguard organisms, killing things left and right, regular Lictors going around, maybe damaging lines, but then at the same time the Neurolictor coming in, and your commander, if he's not been killed yet, he's going to go crazy. And you can imagine that once your command structure's gone, how easy it's going to be for the rest of the Hive to come in and wipe out everybody.
Yeah. So yeah, very exciting stuff for Tyranny players. Some really interesting ways to approach that army too. I think also I have a treat for painters there as well. If you're going to go for kind of really lean into that kind of chameleonic style, there's lots of very interesting ways you could approach the paint scheme for that. Would be cool. Right. We're not done yet. We've got some more things. So we've seen the line troops, we've seen the strike troops, we've seen the infiltrating troops. They are going to need some fire support.
Yes.
So let's have a look at our next video.
Biovores? What? This thing looks too spidery.
So, as I think Raf said before we started this stream, bug guns never tire, which I thought was a great line. So, there we are. So, these are the new artillery beasts for the Tyranids. They are both refreshes, but really significant miniature refreshes of some classic units. So, first off, we've got the Biovore. So, Biovore has been part of the Tyranid army since, I think, 2nd edition. Changed a few times over the years in terms of its aesthetic. I remember a very early one, and then it kind of became a bit orky, and then it became a little bit less orky, and now it is a very different kind of aesthetic, but one that I think is very cool and kind of absolutely in keeping with the idea of a...
Still cool though. Very spidery.
It looks like a kind of heavy thing, doesn't it? That kind of beds in, sort of ticks into the ground and fires.
Big claws you can see ramming into the ground to kind of give it that stability.
Yeah. So what do we know about Biovore?
I do like that it is mainly carapace though. It gives you a like a point of difference.
Long continuous spurs. As you can see there in the bottom right, those are the spore mines, and they basically keep a bunch of them in.
Oh, the 75-inch, nice.
And then there's a massive muscle.
I really like imagine having some gaunts and stuff that
drift across the battlefield.
have small amounts of carapace on them, and then this thing is just covered in carapace. Gives you a real good point of difference in your army. Visually.
So this is really different looking, I think, from the previous Biovore. So it has much more of a kind of almost crab-like insectoid aesthetic, doesn't it?
There's an almost tank-like feel.
Crab-like insectoid. Crab-like insectoid.
You can imagine it scuttling, whereas before it was almost lumbering.
Yeah, a little bit clumsy.
It's one of the two, but it's not both.
About Tyranids is that they evolve, they get better at whatever the form is that they need to take to do the job properly. They'll eventually kind of reach it. The cannon on the back looks like it means business as well. It is a pretty scary looking gun. So in game terms, these do a few things for you. So people who've been playing Tyranids for a long time will be kind of familiar with the concepts, but fundamentally does a couple of things for you. The first thing it does is it gives you some long-range artillery support. Crucially, it can fire at stuff that it can't see, so that's really useful. It's got indirect fire. That's great for kind of catching little enemy units.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about the whole arachnid vibe that it's giving off, but the model itself looks
really useful is that you
awesome.
can spore mines around the battlefield, and that's great because you can block off bits of the battlefield and do clever stuff with blocking enemy units and making them have to take damage if they move to certain places and just mind games basically. So it does more for you than if it was just a big gun on the back of a bug. Basically.
That's it.
Yeah, so very cool. So that's one way you can build the kit. This is a dual kit. You can also build it as a Pyrovore.
Pyrovore, yeah.
This is looks sort of similar on the face of it, but has a very different battlefield role. Alex, what's a Pyrovore?
So these guys get a little bit closer. These are essentially pre-digestion beasts. So we've heard of all the feeder beasts that come along afterwards and they gobble up all the biomass. These guys basically get there first, spread the digestive juices to start melting things down, get access to all those juicy nutrients and stuff they're after. So when these
It's
guys
like when you
come
put
down,
vinegar on chips before you start eating.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Yeah.
and yeah, so these guys are basically dripping with acid, and the big gun on top, instead of firing spore mines, basically fires out a burning chemical flame that can incinerate.
They do look cool.
everything
They
around.
do look cool static.
And after it's done that, come along, gobble up all the flesh.
Nice, lovely. So in game terms, this has almost the opposite role from the Biovore. The Biovore sits at the back of the battlefield, probably on your kind of backfield, lobbing spore mines across the battlefield. This is the opposite. This is scuttling forward or podding in with a Tyrannocyte or something, and then basically forming the part of your early
Do you think they've made them tougher though?
the enemy for
You think they'll be like a toughness 6 type of bug?
or something like that. It also in game
They look like they're on a 60 mil base. Surely they're not going to be running around with like toughness 4.
through their cover. So if you're trying to hide behind a tree, all of a sudden the tree is covered in weird biological acid and is now just a little steaming puddle, and you're exposed to the firepower of the rest of the Tyranid forces.
One of my favourite things about this is, as it did before, is that because it's so stuffed full of these kind of like explosive gases, even if you do manage to kill it, it could explode and kill you.
Yes, it can also explode and kill your own troops, so you do need to be a little bit careful
That is
about exactly where you put them. So if you've got little squads of these running around, there is a danger.
You'd hope so, Static. You hope it's like a 2 or a 3 up save. I think they used to run around at a 4, didn't they?
So that when they explode, it's the enemy that take the hits.
I think they were a 4 with a 4 up save. They weren't really something people took. You took Biovores to put Spore Mines down, but Pyrovores I don't think you saw much.
Support them, but close range fire support, basically.
That's it. Soften up the target.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Okay, so we've seen loads of stuff so far. We've seen new Gene Stealers, we've seen new Gaunts, we've seen loads of new Lictors, we've seen some fire support. Next up, the last of our Tyranid previews, we have the largest
leader.
miniature on its
Big
way
leader.
Tyranids. Let's take a look at our last model.
What is this?
So that was the Norn Emissary. This is a terrifying, giant new synapse psychic monster. Does everything, doesn't it? It's huge new terror for the Tyranids. So, Alex, what do we know about a Norn Emissary?
So when the Hive Fleet wants something done and they want it done right, they're going to send one of these. So when we think of
Okay, this thing's nuts.
We think of it like as a leader bug. It's going to be in charge of a part of the army, or it's going to be a monstrous creature that performs some sort of task as part of the army. But not these guys. These guys are created.
So the Norn Queen is the leader of the Tyranids, yeah, basically the Norn Queen.
So they can make decisions on the fly to benefit them to complete their mission, which is something we don't really see with any of the Tyranids. They're not given any kind of self-control, whereas the Emissary is basically given whatever leeway it needs to complete its task. So the Emissary in particular tends to be sent after enemy commanders. They're sort of a supersized assassin, and you can see from that brain that they've got some pretty potent psychic potential.
Yeah. So if we can have a look at the.
So I feel like Dante's going to get squished.
So like that is a hefty base. This guy stands taller than the Wraith Lord basically on the battlefield. So it's a big old monster, standing taller than things like anything else that's plastic basically in your current Tyranid army. He's got loads of weaponry for kind of up close killing. So he's got this huge, great scythes. He's got his claws. He's got some pretty significant ranged psychic firepower as well. So when you're coming up against this guy, he's going to be blasting you with kind of psychic bolts as well. As we've seen with
Good luck painting that thing.
For the Tyranids, there are loads of like really lovely, luscious little details all over this.
Good luck painting that thing.
What initially looks to be one creature is actually like a composite of loads of different symbiotes. So you look on the back there and you've got weird little, I guess they're kind of psychic booster brain things.
But those could individually each be another creature. So
I mean, they probably are.
Yeah. So if you just want to make it more and more capable, you just keep adding brains.
Yeah, so maybe each one of those is like a detail of the task or something. Like this one knows all the planetary codes for the world you're trying to go to, and this one has all we know about the Codex Astartes. So if some of those space marines turn up, you can eat them, or something like that. A very impressive centerpiece kit. So Tyranids have got loads of like big monster kits, and obviously one of the ways that you can play a Tyranid army is to kind of lean heavily into the kind of monster mash sort of style. But this is absolutely, if you've got that kind of army, you want to have one of these at the centre of it because it looks very imposing, very cool, towers over something like enemy captains and champions and things like that, and has the strength and psychic might to basically take on pretty much anything in the game. Like this is one of the kind of alpha units, I guess.
I knew Nids were getting something new, but God, this thing here, holy moly.
So there's two things you can make. So the Norn Emissary is the first one, a kind of honed precision killer. The other unit you can make with this is the Norn Assimilator. So Alex, what's a Norn Assimilator?
So the Norn Assimilator is basically similar in task to the Emissary, whereby it's got a specific task, a specific target that it needs to take out, but rather than necessarily a commander, it might be an enemy monster or a vehicle or a fortification. So
it's much less subtle.
Yes, so where the Emissary is almost akin to a sniper taking out a key target.
Just dual kitting this stuff up so they can sell more of them.
to make sure that whatever gets hit gets crushed.
Yo,
As you can see,
how you doing, Astartes?
some pretty tasty differences between the kits. He's not equipped with all of the psychic brains, as it were.
He's got brawn.
Yes,
He's got
he does. You can see the two weapons on the bottom are his tox injector harpoons. Now these pack an absolute punch, and they're going to go through anything they hit. And you can see he's got those barbs on the chest.
Yeah, Marines lose, yeah.
Get away from him. You can strike them, drag them back.
Yeah, and there's a kind of toxic feel to this model
Yes.
as well. So on the base, obviously, you've got that kind of burning, acidic look. But those harpoons there look like they're kind of primed with poison and things. So while you might send in the Norn emissary to capture an enemy commander, this guy's not taking prisoners.
Oh, no.
He is like skewering enemy units and like ripping open bunkers and destroying everything that's inside. So he's just an absolute like battering ram of death. So there you can see we talked about the scale of this guy. So that is a Wraith Lord. Wraith Lords are pretty big. They're
Pretty
about
big,
the same
yeah.
height as a Redemptor, I think.
Yeah,
in that kind of
height-wise.
ballpark. So he's going to look about right, going toe to toe with like the. Kind
I
of
like how they give
maybe not
examples. They're like, oh, Wraith Lords are pretty big. They're about the size of a Redemptor, but they just give no one any idea
So you could start to throw, you
on
can
what that
threaten
actual height
pretty
is
much
in
anything.
terms of like centimeters or inches.
But yeah, those tox injector harpoons, as you can imagine, as a harpoon, can be fired out at range, but simultaneously you can also use them in combat, and they're, if anything, they're even worse. But one of the big things with both of these kits is that they have a single purpose. So whilst other, Tyranids might be like, take the planet, eat the things, these guys have been told, I just want that commander dead, I want that vehicle dead, and they'll send them after it. And as part of that, they get some special rules to do so. So when they are attacking their target, they'll get some re-rolls, or if they are specifically after an objective, they'll get a bit of a bonus.
Yeah, so they've got some play in game basically.
Yes.
So if you can either go, there is an enemy unit that I just absolutely want to. I know that if I kill that unit, that the game is going to go favourably for me. You can go, this model is going to kill that unit, or you can go, this is the objective that the game is going to pivot around. I'm going to go for that objective. In which case, you get bonuses to this unit's ability when it's near that objective.
That's it. As you said, I think even though he's maybe not quite got the height or the bulk of a knight, given his special rules, if he wants to target a knight, I don't think it's going to last long.
There you go. Okay, so that is, I think sometimes you see new units added to Warhammer 40,000. You're like, that is going to be one of the things to watch.
Yes.
And if you're going to go Tyranids, you're going to be like, how can I find a place for this lovely gentleman in my force? And if you're going to go up against Tyranids, you're going to have to work out how you deal with a model like that. So that is our roundup for the Tyranids. So loads of great new miniatures on show there. We had new G-Stealers,
That's a
new Gorn,
pretty good reveal for the Nids.
Lictors,
I think.
Living Artillery, and new Norn emissary.
Let's get some Marines.
Very cool. So loads of stuff on the
Let's
way.
get some Marines to take out those Nids.
Did you have a particular favourite?
Did I ever? So I like the G-Stealers. Like it's all cool, but I think I've just got a soft spot for G-Stealers. How about yourself, Alex?
I think the Neurolictor. I
Okay.
was torn between the Assimilator and the Neurolictor, but there's just something about it. It's that kind of.
I like the regular
lines.
Lictors. That was my favourite reveal. The regular Lictors.
A bit of psychic might behind it.
Very cool. Right, so all of those new Tyranid miniatures are on the way later this year. They all come out alongside the new Codex Tyranids, which we can confirm is the first Codex of the new edition. So if you've got a Tyranid force, paint up your Leviathan army, have fun with that. Plenty more reinforcements on the way. Space Marine players, I know we didn't get to see any new Space Marines today. You can't win
Oh,
them all.
really?
Literally can't win them all. But there's plenty new Space Marine miniatures on the way in the not too distant future, so we will still get to see all of those. They're still getting released. You just don't get to see them today. A big thank you for all of you who joined in. A special big thank you if you took part in the Battle for Ogham campaign. It's been really, really fun. I'd like to say thank you for Alex for
Thank you
joining
for
us.
having me.
A big thank you to Nick for making
Their new gun.
And a thank you for Notley in the chat for keeping you all honest. A reminder, if you are thinking of starting either a Tyranid or a Space Marine army, a couple of great box sets out there that you can do it with. There is the Leviathan box, which you will still be able to find in a few places.
Yep.
It is sold out online, but there are a few stores dotted around that still have a few copies. So get in touch
So
with
this
your
was the reveal
local
then?
store or your local independent retailer. See if they still got copies. That box is a brilliant place to start either a Tyranid or a Space Marine force. Equally, If you want something a little bit smaller, there are some new starter sets that are on pre-order today from GamesWorkshop.com and also from local retailers. So have a look out for that too. There's a range of different great box sets to start Tyranny for a Space Marine course. With that, I thank you all again for coming, and we will roll through a last video wrapping up all of the great reveals we've had today. Thank you so much for joining us, guys.
One world is consumed, but many more await, full of biomass for the taking.
No Marines, no, because the other the mission was lost by the Marines. That was it, yeah. I don't think it was a vote, it was the campaign. Whoever won the campaign got their models shown off. Alright guys, that's a wrap. I thought it would go for longer, which isn't too bad because that means I can head off to bed. But thank you for everyone that turned up, and thanks for all those likes on the live. We'll be back tomorrow with the regular paint streams. No jump packs today, nah. Nope. Yeah, I'd like to see him as well. Alright guys, I will see you all tomorrow, and enjoy the rest of your day.